daughter is like you. I said, Mom, how did you do?
Good morning.
That's right.
Welcome everybody. I'm the same way. I literally like when I have like Hana, when I see that like my kids are playing with something from my brother that like it says like my family's bungalow name on it, like that's how you know how old it is. Like I know. It really is. It is. It's good. There is an idea to saving things, but like I'm like I'll save one thing. Like I guess because I have like it in my like for me like when I declutter my house I can declutter my mind like but it's not good because then I just end up throwing out like a million things. But whatever. My neighbors always like benefit from it. They're always like, Faigy, what's this? I'm like, go for it. Like have it. Okay, fine. So we'll just try to recap a little bit. Sometimes like weeks feel very short and then sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened last week? But I know that we were still in the middle of Parak Yud. We were learning about the Tzaddik. But just like to go back a little bit to the beginning, we'll do the idea of these three characters. Because like we're going to focus a little bit more now on the Tzaddik today. We're going to go a little bit deeper into what the Tzaddik Gomer was. But just to remember, when we first started off, like Hashem had told us, like when you first come down to this world, promise that you're going to be a Tzaddik and not a Rasha. So we have that idea already of like, oh, what does it mean to be a Tzaddik? Then we also like preface this parak with saying that like, this is not really about us. This is really about a different kind of neshama, referred to as a tzaddik. And yes, we all can have tzaddik-like moments, but this is not something that we should be like bogged down with. And ultimately, we really just want to be the Benoni. Like that's really where we're at. Well, we didn't get there yet. We're doing tzaddik first. One parak on tzaddik, one parak on Rasha, one parak on Benoni. Yesterday, I was actually at the Chizuk mission, and Chase Tao was speaking, and I'm just like, oh, he's my hero. I'm like, you know, like when you see like Justin Bieber, I was like so excited to like listen and hear from him. And like in person, it was not my first in-person class with him, but like it was just so, like he gets your mind thinking, like he gets wheels moving. And even if you walk out of there and you're like, I don't understand what he just said, all of a sudden you're like, tickles your mind. I love that. And somebody actually asked him a question about this idea of like a tzaddik and the Rasha. And they don't need because it's like tzaddik seems so far from us. And like Rasha's like, oh my gosh, that's a terrible person. And he was saying that like Rasha's not Haman. Rasha's not a guy with like a long nose and like scary and the bad guy. Like Russians are walking around here, like maybe I am, like maybe we are, we don't know, but it's not a bad, evil person. A Russia in this sense is somebody who, for the most part, has it together, but then and then he'll end up losing it. I was talking about follow-up from yesterday of Shay's Tao, of like, I know, but I love what she was just saying, like he tickles your mind, he gets you to think, he gets you like into that place. But so don't think that a Russia is like this super evil bad guy. So we just have to put that into context when we're looking. It's not like, oh, here's the good guy, here's the bad guy, and here's the middle ground. We are all of them.
This is a Russian.
Yeah. We definitely, and also right. So like in this parak, we'll focus on how we have a tzaddik inside of us. That might not be our main persona, but like we can definitely clothe ourselves with the right intentions to be able to have tzaddik-like moments. And then last week we started off by saying how the two types of tzaddik. Do you remember? Let's see. What are the two types of tzaddik? Tzaddik Gomer, who's totally obliterated his entire nefesh habahamis and flipped it to another neshama, which is godly. And then there's, what's the other one? A tzaddik she'eno gomer, right? So we have, here she is, tzaddik she'eno gomer. So we have, I feel like I should warn everybody, really, those cookies were made by Nechama that we were supposed to bring up visiting day. No, they look amazing, but like they're like a drop powdery. So like, but they're very good. I supervised, but they're very good. They look amazing, right? I know. It's weird. My sister-in-law has this recipe that like somehow when I make it, like it doesn't come out like hers. I'm like, are you skipping an ingredient? Did you switch something up? I have this like crazy like memory in my head. She made these cookies after I had a baby. Literally, like my daughter was just 18. I think Sunday's her Hebrew birthday. And she brought to the hospital like a platter of cookies or whatever. It was like my first baby. I didn't realize like I'm starving. I couldn't eat for hours before, like during my labor. I ate an entire platter of cookies. Like, you know when someone brings like shalom zachar or whatever? I'm like, I need those cookies. Yeah. And I'm like, these do not look like them. But okay, they're good. So we were talking about, so we have tzaddik like a tzaddik gomer and tzaddik she'eno gomer. That's not fully obliterated. So how do we define the difference between these two? And it's a very fine line. First of all, you should know that the main group of tzaddikim that we do have in our generation are tzaddik she'eno gomer. Okay, is an incomplete tzaddik, a tzaddik ve'ralo. We refer to them as a tzaddik that still has some ra in him, and we said that ra is not evil. I think we're trying to like get rid of this idea of like a Rasha is a bad guy and ra is evil. We said that ra is selfishness. Being being selfish is Ra. So a tzaddik that still has a little bit of Ra inside of him, that he didn't totally obliterate it and flip it, he still has it inside of him. It's totally, he doesn't have those desires. It doesn't desire him, but we said it doesn't disgust him. For a tzaddik gomer, a tzaddik who's totally obliterated, he would be like, ooh, like I can't do that. Like we gave that example, like throwing your mother down the steps. Like that's a terrible, like that nauseates me, that scares me. So that's how he feels about anything that's not connected to Hashem. So a tzaddik she'eno gomer, he's just like, that's not my thing. Like I just don't do that. I just don't need bacon. Like that's not my thing. But for a tzaddik that is totally flipped it, a tzaddik v'tovlo, who has also good with him. Tovlo means that he has another yitzer tov. It's not any yitzer hara, it's only yitzer tov. For him, it's like, ugh, he's like nauseous from it. He can't have it. There's no, the concept of like a pig or bacon or whatever, he won't have that taiva. So that was like the fine line of the two differences between them. So now each of these tzaddikim have two names. So we have, this is like a little technical, this parak, so that's why we broke it into two. So we have tzaddik v'tovlo and tzaddik gomer on one side. That's like a perfect tzaddik. And then we have tzaddik she'eno gomer and tzaddik viralo on the other side. So we have these two tzaddikim. Now what he's going to do is going to add one more name for this tzaddik v'tovlo, and then we'll try to understand what the essence of a tzaddik v'tovlo. And remember that there's probably only one per generation. The tzaddikim that are sprinkled into the generation are the tzaddikim that are tzaddik viralo, but the tzaddikim, like that one big tzaddik, it could be that there's only one or two per generation, and those are ones that never done anything wrong. It's not like even they messed up, it's like the strongest. So think about it, let's say one per generation. The other ones we have. Okay, so do you remember this? It's good? We're ready to go back in? Yeah? Okay, fine. So this one is like, I took so many notes because I'm like, this one is like very technical, but we'll try to get through. Okay, so who are these tzaddikim? So he says, let's try to understand like one more name. The way that he refers to them are called, I love this name, I don't know why, maybe because I want to make aliyah. They're called b'nei aliyah. Like, I'm like, okay, so my children, I keep saying, like, my children are going to be b'nei aliyah. Like, maybe I won't be able to do it right now, but my kids will be the ones. Like, I have a 5-year plan, and I'm like, we're going to get there. So this idea of b'nei aliyah, which means, like, literally, like, men of ascent. It sounds like an album of, like, the next, like, TYH song. I don't know, like something, like men of ascent. Like, what is this b'nei aliyah? It's a third name that we have, okay? So he says, Ach al malos gomer, hu sha'amar Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. So, however, it says about this level of a complete tzaddik, of a tzaddik gomer, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai say, Re'isi b'nei aliyah v'hei muta'im. I have seen elevated men, and they are few. So he's like, I've seen a couple of them. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai is saying, he was probably one of them. And he was saying, I've seen some of them, and they are referred to as these b'nei aliyah, as men of ascent. What are they? Shalachein nikra'im b'nei aliyah. So let's try to think, like, why are they called men of elevation? Like, that's their, like, tagline.
Elevating
Like,
themselves.
they're elevating what?
Their life.
Their life, more so.
Maybe the whole generation.
Their whole, yes, definitely the whole generation. And what are we supposed to do with physicality in this world? If you don't have a desire for physicality in this world, because you're a tzaddik, remember, you come down and your neshama only wants to connect to Hashem. So now I'm saying that you are men of elevation. That what are you here in this world? They don't have any their own personal desires, right? They're elevating themselves by elevating all the mundane. I happen to be a tzaddik gomer. I happen to have a neshama that really could be up there in Shemayim and can live there all day. But Hashem put me down here in this world. None of this is for my desire. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take it all. I'm just going to elevate it. I'm going to take everything that's here in this world and I'm going to elevate it. And I'm going to put it. Yes. Yeah. That's who, they are the ones that know how to do it best because they're programmed to do it. That's built into their programming is like, okay, they come down here and they have this like neshama vision and all they see is spiritual and they're like, I see grapes, but really these are not grapes. This is a way for me to connect to Hashem, right? Like the story that he said last week about, and I think he said it yesterday. He said it with Zusha and I'm like, I think he said Rebbe Melech, where Rebbe Melech, like what's the difference between Rebbe Melech and his Hasidim? He's like, you may have gone to the same yeshiva as me, but you eat an apple because you eat an apple. You're hungry. I eat an apple so I can make a bracha on it. So we're looking out for those things.
I make a bracha to eat the apple, you eat the apple to eat the bracha.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, he realized that everything, and that's obviously because he was a tzaddik, that everything was there for his elevation. So why are they called, what's one reason why they're called B'nai Aliyah? What is it? Shehim shemehafchen hara umalin osola kedusha, because they transform the evil urge of their animal souls and then they elevate it to holiness. So they convert and they're able to transform Ra into kedusha. And what's Ra?
Selfishness.
Selfishness. and mundane when it's not connected to Hashem. And then what do? They flip it. They're like, that's what they do. They like come down into this world. It's almost like they have this like ability. It's like they have like a wand that can just like, you put it on here and now all of a sudden I see what it is and it reveals what it is. Like, you know how like they put like the thing on the bunny and they take it off and it's like, ta-da, right? Like, oh, you thought it was a phone? No, actually, boom, this is a way for me to connect and share Torah with the world. Like, that's what they always see. Me, I'm like, oh, did I get the right picture? Was it the right filter? Was it right? Like, for them, they only see the use of the phone as a way to connect Hashem, as a soapbox to be able to teach Torah.
Are there people with the neshamas of tzaddikim, like complete tzaddikim, that went wrong? Or it never... Because what's the point? It's almost like you program the neshama, so
It's not that exciting.
Something's like missing there. Why do you need the puppet? Like, it's not a puppet, but why do you need... Hashem could have done himself whatever magic he needs.
So it's funny, we were talking about this a little yesterday by the Chizuk mission. We were talking about the idea of like constant movement. As much as Hashem, that it looks like sometimes we're dormant, it looks like we're not moving, like you're all sitting here and like, okay, fidgeting a little bit and drinking. Inside of you, there's so much movement happening. Like you take one of your cells, you look under a microscope, you're moving. Why did Hashem make us in a way that inside we're up and down, constantly moving, and on the outside it looks like we're just like, it's a breeze, right? Because life and chiyas and actually living requires movement. And even with a tzaddik gomer who is programmed and that's his default setting to flip everything, he still has to choose those decisions, and we'll explain in the second reason of why they're called b'nei aliyah, which is a deeper version. Okay? So you're saying, okay, so it's not such a big deal, right? We flip it, right? That's what we do. That's their purpose here in this world. It can't be that hard. Okay, that's a great reason. Fine. That's answer number one. Answer number one of why they're b'nei aliyah is because they flip things. Now it starts to say answer number two, and maybe this will answer. He says, the O Nikrim b'nei... Oh, wait, 1 second. Before we go there, I want to just say one thing. He says that... So, you're saying... Are you saying that it's not so hard? Like, what's the big deal?
No, I don't... I'm sure there is something deep, but on the surface it seems like, why? Why would Hashem need them? If they don't have a Behira almost. They are like... It's not hard for them.
It's not hard for them. Okay.
But like you're saying by default, they act righteously by default. What's the purpose?
What's the purpose of that? Okay, so first of all, there are very, very, very few. And I like what you said. Somebody said before, they elevate the whole generation. But let's see 1 second. What's the purpose over here? It says, it says it in the Zohar, that when Rabbi Chia was a big tzaddik and he wanted to ascend to the level of being able to be Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the one that named them as Bnei Aliyah. So he says, I want to ascend to the heavenly chamber of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and I want to be there. And then he heard a voice call out from the chamber of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And what does it say? It says, shall I read it in Hebrew? It says, Menuchan di chashucha. Who's the one? Are you among ones who know how to transform darkness and nehora to light? Vitam and Miriru Masika. Hi, how are you? Who among you are you one of those people who's transformed darkness into light and bitter flavors into sweet before arriving here? He's basically saying this is a VIP club. Like, you want to come up here to my chamber, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Are you one of those that know how to flip it? Okay, and if you are, then you could come up here. So it's still a job. Even if it's their default setting, they still have to constantly work on it. They're still moving. Even if it looks like they have it all together and then they're controlled and they have a big white beard and they're writing Torah scrolls, they still have to consciously every day come into this world with flipping it. It's easy for them, but they have to flip it. They have to be one of those people. He's like, you can't come up here. You can't come up to my chamber unless you did it. But wait, so now there's a deeper reasoning as to why, because that almost seems like, okay, fine, so great, you elevate the mundane, I'm so happy for you, you're B'nai Aliyah, beautiful, yay, okay, let's all move to Israel. But a deeper version of it, and this is why it's really harder to understand a tzaddik, we have to understand, I'll say this before we go in, that a tzaddik doesn't lust anything for his own personal reason, like nothing. Everything that he does is for Hashem. Everything that he wants to do, he desires to do it for Hashem. Where could that run into a problem? And can that run into a problem? He lusts after spiritual highs. Is there ever such a thing? Like, I can't even imagine. Like, I mean, I have it a little bit because now I'm loving to learn. That, like, it's now my desire to want to spend all day learning. But that's my desire.
Like, it's hard for his children and his wife. He said, can I have money for the shoes for the children? And he gave the last month's money for tzedakah.
Yes. By the way, 100%.
And I was always angry when I was reading like
No, it really is like that. Like, their desire for spiritualness, because it makes them feel so good, that's literally what they lust after. Like, for me, it's like, a burger, right? Or like mom's pastries or something like that. That's something that we're dreaming about. And all they want to do is put tefillin on. And then the problem is that the tefillin becomes something about themselves and not about Hashem. So it's almost comical, like I'm laughing when I'm saying it, but that's really what they desire. There comes a point where like, thank God I'm like, also now that I'm not like in work, I'm just like, every day I'm like, okay, and I just decided yesterday, I'm like, hey, I'm going to add Rabbi Nachman, we're going to start learning Rabbi Nachman, and I'm like, it's for my own desires, because like I'm very heavy in Tanya right now, and I feel like I need a little like breast of emotion, so I'm like, I'm going to do that on the side, and I'm like, that's just for me, that's not, I'm like, that's just for me. It's not really just for Hashem. That's for me because I'm like, I need to cool the waters of Tanya, of all the intellect, and I want to address my emotions also. So I'm like, is this what a tzaddik, like a tzaddik gomer feels all the time? Like he always feels that all these spiritual things wants to feed himself. It's a funny thing because we're not really at that level, but if you ever had that level of realizing like, I'm ready to give everything up for Hashem, that's your tzaddik-like moment. When you realize, like, even though I don't want to do this, even though it's really, like, I have a personal desire to use something else with it, but I'm going to use it for Hashem, that's much deeper. So, like, does that make sense? So let's think for a tzaddik, before we go inside, like a tzaddik, like, let's say tzedakah. What does a tzaddik look at tzedakah? I feel bad, we're getting very technical into tzaddik, and, like, really we're bein on it, we're striving to be bein on it, but, like, it's in theory just to discuss like what tzaddikim are, and like obviously Yamif Kulam tzaddikim, and like every yid's a big tzaddik. So like on some level we have to understand. But what does a tzaddik look at tzedakah as? As a mitzvah for Hashem, but also sometimes like what you were saying, like he can get in the way. The whole reason Hashem made money in His eyes is for tzedakah. That's the only reason there's money in this world, and it's only for being able to give it away. That's all he thinks about all the time when it comes to tzedakah. So, and by the way, the tzaddik has the ability to lust after Hashem. And lust is an interesting word. What's the difference between lust and love? Lust actually takes, and love gives. Right? Love is more about giving, and lust is how can I take. So the tzaddik, what he struggles with and that he could overcome is that he lusts after Hashem just for that own reason of just having Hashem. For his own selfish reasons of wanting Hashem. For that spiritual high, for feeling good about it. So what does he have to do? He has to deprogram himself and remember, no. This is not about me. This is about Hashem. And that kind of takes us back to the first thing. And what does Hashem want? You said it before. What does Hashem want? It's not about me anymore. Now I'm realizing a tzaddik has to come to a realization of saying like, okay, I know there's a lot of good in this world, but everything is really for Hashem. And I just want to give it back to Hashem. And Hashem's like, no, but you missed my memo. My memo is Dir B'Tachtonim. My memo is that you should be in here in this world and you should use the physical things. And you're like, no, but it's not for me. It's for you, Hashem. Hashem, it's like a tennis match. It's like the toddler's like, I want to give it back to Hashem, and then Hashem is like, no, but I want it down here, and you're like, no, but all I want to do is elevate it, and then Hashem's like, yeah, but I want it here, actually in this physical world, and I want it to look like a stressed out carpal situation. Like I want it to look like that, and you're like, no, but like I just want to play music in the car, and my kids will be humming along to Uncle Moshe, and we'll be so happy. And then Hashem's like, no, but your kids are going to be killing each other, and I want you to be here in this world, and I want you to feel it in this world. And that's what the tzaddik feels all day. And you have to like literally like retrain your mind to be like, no, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. It was on one of the playlists. There's nowhere I need to be. I think it was maybe on last month's playlist. And whenever I'm stressed, which is sometimes a lot of times, I have to listen to like, there's nowhere I need to be other than right here. So imagine like, just put ourselves, even though we're not tzaddikim, and eventually we'll strive to be tzaddikim, but what we have to take away from this parak is a drop of what this tzaddik feels like. The tzaddik, all it wants to do is make everything for Hashem. And then Hashem comes back and says, 1 second. If you want to really do for me, you know what I really want? You know what I really lust after? Because it says, Hashem desires it. So if you really want to do Hashem's will, then you have to find out His desires. And what's His desire? His desire is to be down here, right here in this world. And another thing that I learned yesterday from Chase Taub is that ultimately, and this was so cool when he was talking about like Mashiach consciousness, everything just wants to go back to his creator. So the tzaddik feels it at the most level. Like as much as like the way that he was doing it is like really like this phone holder just wants to be here on this table. But because I pulled it up, it's up now. But the second I let go, it just goes back to where it wants to be. The tzaddik's default setting is just to go back to Hashem. And that's why, by the way, he took his whole Nefesh HaHamis, switched it around, made it into a Nefesh HaLokis. Now he's like, I have two amazing neshamas. Now what am I going to do with this? And Hashem's like, now you take those two amazing neshamas and you continue to use them here and down here in this world. But all I want to do is go back. Hashem's like, well, sorry, you got to come here. He's like, but I just want to float up into Ruchnias and be in a spiritual world. And it's like, no, you have to be down here. And then I loved how it like connected to that idea of Merachafes, is that really like, where do we live? We live in a world of merachafes. We live in a world that's not up and that's not down, but it's merachafes, it's hovering. It's like a helicopter. We were like giving an example of like a helicopter mom, right? Like, I love you, here, take this snack. And the kid is like, Ma, go away. But you're like hovering over them. In the Zohar, it says, Mati velo mati. Like it touches, but it doesn't touch. So the idea of going up and ascending to spiritual worlds is all the tzaddik wants to do and wants to escape in there. The Rasha obviously wants to do the bottom and the between. And then the Beinoni is that hovering point of like, I want to be high, but I also have to be here. And it's a very cool place to find yourself into, but also know that you could tap into those tzaddik-like moments. And that tzaddik-like moment would be like, I want to be in a place of everything's for Hashem, but I remember that really all Hashem wants is to be down here. Make sense? Okay, fine. So now we'll like read it inside. Okay, but really ask questions, because honestly, this took me a long time to like wrap my mind around. Okay, so it says, V'o nikrim b'nei aliyah. They're also called, another reason why they're called b'nei aliyah, is mipnei shegam avodasam b'bechinas v'asei tov u'b'kiyim Torah. Because, why is it? Why are they referred to as b'nei aliyah, this elevated men? Because in addition to their transformation of negativity, even their positive activities of Torah and mitzvot observance are all devoted for Hashem. He says everything that he does is litzorach gavoa, which is like all for Hashem. Every single thought process is for Hashem. Umale male, ad rum hamaylos, and he goes higher and higher till he gets to the greatest heights. And then velo kedei ladavka bo yisbarach, and then the worship is not carried out merely to attach themselves to God, but also to satisfy a personal thirsting that they have. It says liravos, which is like to satisfy, tzimon nafsham, the personal thirst that they have in their soul. I don't know, do you ever have that like personal thirst, like all of a sudden, like I just want to connect to Hashem, but it comes from within you? Yeah, someone told me yesterday, she's like, I had a dream that I have to go to Reb Shaila, so I went to Reb Shaila. I'm like, I love this, because like you speak my language. Like Reb Shaila didn't come to me in a dream, but I was like, I think I have to go. Rich, I'll be there next week. But like, I was like, we have desires. Our souls have desires, and like we're starting to be able to talk like that. Like I like that. I like that. It's not a crazy thought to say that we have these personal thirsts that we want to do here. I mean, for me, it was a tremendous thirst that I moved here. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it was, but there was a thirst here. And I picked up my whole family and I rearranged everybody and their kids and their play dates and all their lives so that to fulfill a personal desire. And like a lot of times I think like 1 second, was this for Hashem or was this a personal thing that I was just trying to fulfill? And it's something that I battle with like all the time.
Even
like
the fact that just sitting here and being here, it's like that thirst of want, like that also what you said, I think like the fact that you're all here is just shows your personal wanting to be.
Right.
And I feel like that thirst and that desire.
It's a real thirst. Like I always say, like nobody's paying anyone to be here. Like we are here and nobody's paying to be, like, it's like we are here just to fulfill a personal thirst. Now, what's the problem with just fulfilling a personal thirst? The problem is that you end up starting to do it for your own desires and you end up like forgetting a little bit about Hashem. So this is where he says that U'kumosha kasav Hai called that all those that are thirsty, it says in Yeshaya, they should come. And what else? And he explains a little further. He gives like all these different examples of that. What happens is with the complete tzaddik is that a person, all he does is think about fulfilling, because it feels so good for him to serve Hashem. But the problem is that it feels so good for him to serve Hashem. And we have to realize that it's not really about what we want to serve Hashem. It's how Hashem wants us to serve us. I think this is like where halacha, for me, this is where halacha makes sense. Like so many times I don't understand halacha. It's fine because I cross refreshing my Rebbitzin for like all my halachos, which I don't know. I have to figure out now what I just did with my pizza maker. I had a fleisch pizza maker. We made a milchik. So I threw out the food, but now do I also have to throw out the pizza maker? But it wasn't ben yomo, but like, I don't know. So like halacha doesn't really always, it doesn't get it. Like it doesn't fill it for me. But then when I realized, like Hashem now, and this we'll get to later on in Tanya, that Hashem lives in the Dalet Amos of halacha, that everything that Hashem wants and desires is confined in Shulchan Aruch. And then I do things that I realize it's really only for Hashem because it really makes no sense. Hashem really want me to go to bingo now and get another pizza maker? Fine, I'll get another pizza maker. Like if that's what I need to do. But I could flip the switch and say, 1 second, that's what I need to do. That's what Hashem wants, even if it doesn't make sense to me. So That's what the tzaddik feels probably all the time. It's like, how do I take that thing that feels personal to me and flip it back and give it to Hashem? So how do we do it? So the Baal Tanya says, and this is like so nice, because the tzaddik finds these things pleasurable. The tzaddik has that ability to lust for Hashem. And if you put lust in the context of taking, you have to say, 1 second, I have to love Hashem. Because love means giving. By the way, the root of ahava is hav, which means to give. That's what love is. I'm always like, ahava, like, like I think of the Dead Sea product, like ahava, like the way that they write it, right? And then I'm like, it's not a pelm. What's that word? Where like, no, it's not, right? No, that's not ahava. But like, I see those letters and I'm like, what's the shorish, right? And ava happens to have one of, there's like in diptuk, like there's like some shorishim that are 3 and then there's some that are 2. In ava, it's hav, which is a 2-letter shorish. And I'm like so scarred from TikTok, like very, very much scarred. Like asid, hoveh, what was the other one? Tzivo. Yeah, like what was that? Like there's a whole nother category of like things like, and then if you put the like ani shamarti, ata shamarta, at shamarti, shamart, and I'm like, in English, like we don't have this. Like it's too confusing. But it's cool that like we could speak 2 languages and understand a little bit of it. But hav is that ability to give, and lust is taking. If you ever think about it, even like in a relationship, like. It's so much better to give. I have this issue that I need to work out. Sometimes I make this into my therapy session, so here it is. Like, I like to host in my house because I like to give. Sometimes when I'm at other people's houses, like, Shiva knows I'm like walking around the kitchen, I'm like, hey, what should I do? Like, what do I do? Like, do you need help? Should I bring in the dips? And like, for some reason, when it's in my space and I'm able to give, I find more enjoyment of that. But there is that idea then that it's enjoyment because it's giving. And I realize it's nice to be on the giving end. Like, people always say, you should always be on the giving end. Like, what does that mean? It's because giving creates love. Lust creates hatred. Because it's like, I'm taking. The giving tree? Like, it's the saddest book of the entire world. The tree is just like, is the giving tree. The tree is loving. The tree is the parent that gives and gives and gives. And the kid is like, and then like, the kid keeps coming back for more and more. I'm like, I have nothing, right? I have nothing else to take. You took everything away from me. Taking will always cause that. So the tzaddik, his problem is that he will lust for Hashem. He loves Hashem so much that he will want to take from Hashem. Like, kaviyachal, like he's an ATM machine. Like, give me more spirituality. Like, give me higher levels. Give me more madrigos. Give me more. And that's what he's feeling. And then at that moment, he has to stop dead in his tracks and he has to remember 1 second. What do I do? So the Baal Tanya says, rather, what should he do? Ella, okay, I'm going to read this slowly. Ki dirushe b'tikunim ezehu chasid hamischasid imkono. Rather, what he has to do is he has to worship the complete tzaddik. What does this tzaddik have to do? What he has to do, he has to learn in the Zohar. It says, according to the Zohar, it says, who is a pious one? Who is a chassid? Ezehu chassid. By the way, I'm like, we never had that. Like in Pirkei Avos, it was like, Ezehu asher hasmech b'chalko, right? Like, what were the other ones? Ezehu gibor kovish yitzro. And then I'm like, what? There's a chassid one? How did I not know about this one? So it's Ezehu chassid, hamis chassid imkono. Who is a person who acts kindly? A chassid is a person who acts kindly. One who acts kindly with his creator. It's a funny thing, like, it's interesting. What does that mean? One who acts kind to his creator. Like we just said, Hashem's not an ATM machine. What does that mean? One who acts kind with his creator.
Does what he wants.
Does what the creator wants, right? It's like when you want to be kind, you find, and I love this like so much, like, Sheistav talks about this a lot, about this idea of Hashem, like, I think it's called anthropomorphism, like where you give Hashem features. Like, Hashem also wants to be loved. Because, like, even though having a relationship with Hashem feels so foreign to us, the more you talk to Hashem and the more you give to Hashem, the more you'll have that relationship with Him. So who's a chassid? What's a real chassid? Someone who makes his creator happy. We don't think that Hashem really needs to be happy. Like, it's a weird thing. Like, why? Like, it's weird. Like, you don't have to be happy. I think about this with parents. I think the closest thing you can flip it to is parents. Like, Ma, like, you're fine, like, you're good, you're older, you're more mature, like, you're giving, you're doing, like, why does it need to be happy? Why do you need, you're the big one, you know what I mean? Like, you're the mature one. Like, Hashem, like, we have to make Hashem happy. It's a weird thing, but that's really a kind person who finds goodness in Hashem. So, being kind to Hashem, like, you think you could just be like, Hashem, give me more, give me more, give me more, without you being kind back to Him. It doesn't work like that. So, Tanya, in general, is a book. It's not a self-help book. It's a book about connecting to Hashem more. And we said, like, very clearly in the beginning that, like, every parak is yichidus with Hashem, with the Rebbe. and you're going in there, and what are you asking him? You're asking him, you might not be on a tzaddik level, but you're asking him, bottom line, if I want to be a tzaddik, how do I become a tzaddik? How do I become a tzaddik gomer? How do I find, even if it's a piece inside of me that's a tzaddik gomer, because really we're striving to be a Beinun, but find a piece inside of me, and what does he say? He says, be kind to your maker. Love Hashem in a way that's not lusting of Hashem. Don't do it to satisfy your needs. Don't do it because it makes you feel good. And I have to remind myself all this time, like, okay, so we're learning Tanya. Like, I have to do it because it makes me feel good, right? Like I took a 3-week break and I was like, oh, it feels like death without Tanya, right? Death for me or death for Hashem? It was death for me, but like, okay, it wasn't death because I got a lot of stuff done, but like, it was like very much like realizing like, oh, I'm a fish out of water. I'm a fish out of water. Who's the fish? Who's the water? It's Hashem. You have to remember that, put it into the context of like, this is Hashem's world. So how do we be kind to Hashem? So what does he say? And the word that he says is imkono, which is, you could say as a creator, but also a word for a nest. How do you say nest in Hebrew? It's a kan, right? Shiluach hakan, right? So kan, so it's like a play on words. It says im kan deleu, that in explaining the teaching of the Zohar, he notes here that the word that he uses for creator, which is kono, right? Somebody who creates something is like a kono, like somebody who owns something, the creator, resembles the word kan, which is nest. And then he explains that the nest is the Shekhinah. So Hashem's nest, so to speak, is the Shekhinah, the divine presence that rests here, right? The divine presence that rests in this world, like hovers over this nest that's right over here. And Hashem's nest, so to speak, is that the complete tzaddik is devoting himself for the sake of the Shekhinah. So it's like that mother bird that like sits over it and watches over it. It cares for it, it loves it. So he's finding that love here for his creator through this way. Okay, and then he says, and what's the ultimate reason? And this is what you were saying in the beginning. Liachta kudshabrichu ushchente v'tachtonim. To unite the Shekhinah down here in this world with Hashem. So we said there's 2 reasons why they're called Bnei Aliyah. One, because they elevate the mundane, and they flip it and they make it good. Okay, great, that's amazing. And then also, why are they called Bnei Aliyah? Because everything that they do is for Hashem. Even if they lust after it, they're able to bring back to Hashem. And then when they're in their mind and they're saying, okay, don't just look at Hashem as an ATM. What does Hashem want? Oh, Hashem wants a dir b'tachtonim. Hashem wants me to elevate the physical. So if you think about it, reason number 1 leads to reason number 2, and then reason number 2 really brings you back to reason 1. 1 is elevate the mundane. 2 is all I want to do is connect to you. Oh, what do you want? Elevate the mundane. So it's like a cycle. It's like this is what the tzaddik feels every single day. And guess what? His job is similar to ours. He might be programmed differently. Like we lust after other things, but and then we have to then take it to Hashem, but he lusts after higher things. So it's like he's having the same movement inside of him. He's having the same contradictions inside of him, but it's just on a different level. So it's not like, oh, he is an easy life. Tzaddikim, oh, he's a tzaddik gomer. Of course, he's the easiest life. Like he got 110 on his test, right? He's a genius. That's not what it is.
It's the hardest for a tzaddik gomer to be in this world.
For sure. 100%. It's the hardest for him because all he wants to do is go up. And that really is how he's programmed. So he has to then work it to bring it back down here.
All this, we're saying that every generation has 18 Hebrew tzaddikim. Are they tzaddikim gamma or we don't know?
So we don't know, but it does say that, I think it said it a little before, maybe we were talking about it last week, that they're sprinkled. They are very few. They're few in nature, it says. There's very few of them. I don't know how. It says the various levels of incomplete tzaddik account for many tzaddikim found throughout the generations. Most of the tzaddikim that we refer to are tzaddik viralo. Most of them are tzaddik eino gomer. Most of the tzaddikim that we know. But both of the tzaddikim feel this. Like they feel this struggle, but the Bnei Aliyah have it even harder. So the 3 names for the complete tzaddik is tzaddik gomer, tzaddik v'tovlo, and now we understand what Bnei Aliyah is. Okay? And then we'll end off this parak here. So he says that, he gives another mashal for, oh my gosh, I love what he was saying yesterday about the mashal. It was crazy. It was so good. He like takes you to another world, she's now. He was explaining like what a mashal is, and that a mashal is a mashal. And like, everyone's like, what is he talking about? And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's so brilliant. It's crazy. Okay, so it says, what else can this be compared to? So what else he gives another mashal for a tzaddik gomer, and he says, he gives the mashal with a child and their parents, which I think maybe is a drop easier to understand than like a marital relationship between Hashem. Like sometimes with men and women, it's hard. But like if you think about giving and taking with male, female, it's good. But this mashal is where a child who has selfless love for his parents, okay? So it's, I hope they're good. I'm not sure if they're edible. Let me know. They're a little grainy. Nachama made them, so yeah. Okay. We have to do just a little disclaimer. Okay, so he says, Kedibra d'shtadel, which, by the way, I feel like I remember he gives this mashal in another parak about a son who exerts a lot of love. Basar, Kedibra d'shtadel basar oave v'imeu, that a son who exerts himself for his mother and father, whom he loves more than himself, more than his own nefesh, more than his own ruach, more than his own neshama, and everything that's his, he considers it worthless, and all he wants to do is please his parents. And he would even be prepared to die for his parents to be able to be like a pidyon, like to redeem himself. So what is this idea of a tzaddik and comparing it to parents? Basically, a tzaddik who's doing mitzvos, when a tzaddik does mitzvahs, what he's doing, he's fulfilling that intimate desire of Hashem having a dir b'tachtonim, right? So it's like a tzaddik amar, when he fully does mitzvahs correctly, he's bringing Hashem down into this world in the purest, deepest way. It's literally like an act of intimacy. And it could also be compared to a child who wants to please his parents so much, all they want to do is please their parents. I don't know if all our kids are like this, but some of them are like this. You know that one who's just like, I say sometimes they're the tattletailer, because all they want to do is be on the right page. Like, they just want to be like, they did something wrong, but I'm doing the right thing, right? Like, I'm the better one. So, like, it's my positive spin on the tattler. But, like, it makes them really, really happy to please. Like, I have a nephew that's like this. Like, everything that he looks up, all he wants to do is just make them so happy. Like, the parents are happy. Then there are the kids who are like, I couldn't care less about you. Like maybe that's like your Russia of a child, but not in Russia in a bad way. Russia in that he has Ra, and that he has a lot of selfishness in him. But those are the more selfish kids. But the kids that are selfless, all they want to do is please their parents. So another way of explaining it is that what does this tzaddik want to do? What's a tzaddik amar? A tzaddik amar is that kid who's so thirsty just to please their parents, just to make them so happy. And if it means, getting 100 on the spelling bee, or if it means like performing, or if it means singing, they're seeking their attention. That's how a tzaddik looks up to Hashem. He's like, I just want you to be so proud of me, and everything I'm doing is for you. Okay. That's like the third mashal, and then we'll end with this. He says, "Ushneim olim b'kona echad," and both these dynamics, the elevated work of all the dynamics of like what this tzaddik wants to do. What does it say? It says that it goes up b'kona echad. It goes up in one, like kona echad is like in one single stalk. Like Yosef's dreams, right? Like he had like stalks that were around, right? And then there was one stalk in the middle that everybody was bending down to that one. And then it really was like the idea that like he was going to be a melech and he was going to be elevated amongst them. So all the work that a tzaddik does here in this world, and this is where it is an avoda. They don't have it easy. They still have to work. But what their job is to do is to unite everything that they're feeling into almost like a beam. Like a stalk, like a 9/11 when they have like those two lights that like are there like a resemblance of like the two buildings. Like that's what it is. All of his work, everything that he does, all the energies that he brings together in this world and bringing everything back to Hashem comes together in one stalk, and then it shoots back up to Shemayim. And it's in this way of like, and the way that I explain it, and this is like a very like, it is an intimate relationship between us and Hashem. Hashem is seen as the giver, we're seen as the receiver, but then we give it back to him. So it's the way that the Tanya describes it, it says it's malin mayim nukvin, that it's feminine waters that are then elevated. So remember we said there's a feminine version of Hashem in this world? What's that word? There's many names of Hashem, but the Shechina, right? Hashchina, like, by the way, the Shechina merachefes al pnei hamayim, that was Hashem's presence, the thing that was resting here in this world but wasn't touching and wasn't going up. In the beginning when Hashem created the world, it says, Ruach Elokim merachefes. That was the Shechina. That was the presence of Hashem in this world. So basically, the way that if you want to envision this, because even though it's like very Kabbalistic and like, ooh, what is this? The idea is that Hashem's presence hovers here in this world. It goes down a little bit, but then we bring it back up to Hashem. And it's kind of like this energy flow. And it is. I don't practice energies and whatever chakras, but like if people did, like that's the idea. So there's feminine waters down here, Mayim Nukvin, that goes up. And then there's waters from above, the higher waters, which are the Lahorid Mayin Dechurin, which is the masculine waters. So remember when Hashem created this world? Sorry, we'll go back to like creation of the world. When Hashem first created the world, it was all one blob of water, right? Then Hashem separated the waters. He put waters above and waters below, right? Day 2 in your 7 days of creation, preschool days, right? 1 is there was darkness and light. On day 2, you draw like a little water on top and like a little water on bottom, and then you color it in, right? And then on day 3, you keep the things on top, but then you add grass, right? So what happens day 1, day 2, day 3? Day 2 is the separation of the waters. There's waters above and there's waters below. Every time we do, Hashem gives us shefa, it comes down as rain. It literally is a shefa. Hashem is pouring down all the goodness from that world. But that's seen as a zachar, as a masculine. It's giving. When we take everything down here and we collect it, and I love the mashal of a stalk because it's like you're collecting, we're like Rus, right? Like we're collecting bundles in a very tznius way. We're bending down, we're collecting those bundles, and then we give it back to Hashem. That's the elevated feminine waters, like the Mayim Nukvin that's rising up. And that idea is really what brings godliness into this world. But that's the idea of like the upper waters and the lower waters coming together. By the way, that's what a mikveh is. Mikvah is created from waters, from well waters, right? They have to dig. All mikvahs are, I think they're building one in Inwood because I always pass it when I'm going to Marifka. Are they building one there? I see like, there is one already? Yeah. I feel like they're building something over there. Maybe it's next to the mikvah. I don't know. I feel like I always pass it over there. But the mikvah, I've done this once. I've like taken my Olami girls to like to a mikvah and like you see the behind the scenes of it and it's like so cool. I think it's cool because we're like always like, hi, mikvah, whatever. Like, great. But then when you like bring these girls here and they're like, whoa, what is this? And I'm like, they're like, you always see the behind the scenes. I'm like, no, I don't see the behind the scenes. I take a little chocolate and I leave. But like here, it's like you see the intricate detail that comes into the mikvah waters, and it's Mayim Nukvin, and it's Mayim like Zahar, like it's the upper waters. It's rainwater that they collect from above, and then they pump up well water from the bottom, and then those two waters go in through an intricate plumbing system and come and fill up the mikvah. That's what a mikvah is. That's why ocean is the closest thing to a mikvah. Right? A pool, not so much. Even though there's some rainwater, we don't know where the well water is, men can use it, it's fine. But that idea of combining those waters together, of bringing the waters back, was what the original world was. So it's that back to nature experience. But what we do every single time we do mitzvos, we raise up feminine waters, and especially if you do it in the way of a tzaddik, that's all for Hashem, it like water shoots up. That's why like springs and mayanos are referred to very much as like Pnimis HaTorah is always like the well springs. Why are well springs such a word in Hasidus? Like why about rain? Why not shefa? Why not rain? Why is it well springs? So the well springs come out because it's Mayim Nukvin. It's feminine waters that come from us. Hashem, yes, obviously placed those waters, but we dig to be able to bring them up. Do you ever realize like in Tanakh there's like so many things about wells? It's like they stuffed their wells, and then Yitzchak dug wells, and then Avram made those wells, and Lot tried to steal their wells. Like, and whenever I see like some people have like little wells in their front lawn, I'm like, where's Rivka? Like, where's the camels? Right? Like, it's like wells are like such a thing in our Torah. Like we laugh at it. We like it's part of like what we are. Like Rivka was by the well, Rachel was by the well, Zipporah was by the well, davening by the well, because it's the idea of the waters that are underneath that we have the ability to bring up. And how do we bring up those waters? Having those tzaddik-like moments, saying that even though I really want it for myself, I'm giving it back to you, Hashem. I'm like throwing it up there, catch it. And that idea of like these B'nai Aliyah, they know how to draw things up from the bottom. That's what they're good at. That's really their default setting of being able to bring it up. They have to just do it for Hashem and not just for themselves. So it says, V'nasim yichudim el yonim, and the relationship between elevating the feminine waters and drawing down the masculine waters is a cause and effect of the energy that they create in the world. So the energy of the feminine waters stimulates heavenly activity. It refers to it as like the supernal unions, which is yichudim el yonim. That like yichudim, right? That's what the Baal Shem Tov told us to do. We have to make yichudim. We have to be miyachid yichudim. So that's what we do. And then in that spiritual realm, it causes lahorid mayim dechurin. It causes those masculine waters to fall down. So when they refine the mundane, they draw down godliness, and then Hashem gets great pleasure, and then He sends down shefa, and then we send back up, and it's like this reciprocal relationship. So like, just to end off this chapter with one line, is like we can all do this for our own motivation. We could say this makes us feel good. We can say, I love going to a share. I'm a share person. I listened to this amazing podcast. It made me feel so good. And then you're like, 1 second, stop like dead in your like tracks and say, 1 second. This is what Hashem wants. Hashem wanted us to be learning Torah down here in this physical world in 85-degree weather. Like that's what He wanted. And for a tzaddik, that's his default setting. All he wants to do is do more spiritual things, and he refines it and like reconfigures and like sends it. He like rewires it and like sends it back up to Hashem, and it causes like Mayim Nukvin to go up, and then feminine, masculine waters to come down, and then that's really what causes great pleasure with Hashem. Okay, thank you. We'll end here. I'm like, this is complicated stuff. For me, it's like it's a lot. Wait, did I lose this? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna shut this here.